Finland become a new front in the Ukraine-Russia war? I'm asking this, keeping in mind the recent developments being talked about quite a bit here in London. I'm talking about a bilateral agreement, one that Finland and the US are negotiating. And this bilateral agreement allows America to use Finnish military bases. And this is according to a report by Helsingin Sanomat. It says that the agreement that is being chalked out allows American troops to station equipment in Finland, also allowing America to build infrastructure in Finland and establish military bases in Finland. Why is this important? Let me show you. Let's just have a look at this map. Look at where Finland is located. It shares a 1,340-kilometer long border with Russia, the country that is currently fighting a war with Ukraine. Now, that is just for the context. While the finer details of this agreement are not out as of now, neither is the timeline for when the American equipment will be arriving in Finland, one cannot help but ask whether Finland will become a new front in this war. You see, this is not the first time that America will be stationing its military or military equipment in another country. In fact, far from it. The US has similar agreements with other NATO countries as well. With Norway, for example, where it has invested $170 million into an airport near Oslo. Finland became a NATO member less than a month ago, and I don't know how many of you remember this, but it was Russia's invasion of Ukraine that prompted Finland to join the NATO. 80% of the country's people voted in its favor, by the way, and now this agreement with America is being chalked out as the war in Ukraine continues. How does Russia see this is the immediate question. Before it invaded Ukraine, Russia repeatedly complained about NATO's expansion. In fact, it was one of the many pretexts of this invasion. When Finland was roped into the NATO, US President Joe Biden told the entire world that Europe is more united than ever. Why don't I read out that quote for you right now? When Putin launched his brutal war of aggression against the people of Ukraine, he thought he could divide Europe and the NATO. He was wrong. Today we are more united than ever. You see, access to Finnish territory has helped the NATO in more ways than one. First, it helps the NATO dominate the Baltic Sea. Second, it provides a new route for reinforcement via Estonia. Basically, Finland helps the NATO strengthen its forward defense. And what's more, the Finnish military is considered to be extremely capable. In fact, analysts say, unlike most European countries, Finland never really stopped preparing for a potential war. Basically, Finland ticks all the right boxes for the NATO. And the news of the bilateral agreement between Finland and the US coming at a time when Russia has unleashed a fresh missile attack on Ukraine. Russian missiles hit Kiev and Pavlograd, killing 2 people and injuring several others. In Bakhmut, the battle appears to be turning. It's a crucial point. Ukraine claiming Russian forces are being pushed back in Bakhmut. In fact, the commander of Ukraine's ground forces, Colonel General Alexander Syrsky, saying, and I'm quoting, "The situation in Bakhmut is quite difficult. In certain parts of the city, the enemy was counter-attacked by our units and left some positions." In short, the back and forth in Bakhmut continues. And whether or not Finland becomes the next front in the war, here is a question neither of the sides can choose to ignore. Can either Ukraine or Russia afford to drag the war? US estimates saying that Russia has lost 20,000 troops in the last 5 months. Let me just repeat that for you. 20,000 troops in 5 months. And half of these were Wagner mercenaries. Now, you may take these numbers with a pinch of salt, given that these are Western estimates. But even then, the high casualty in this war remains a fact. And here's what else does. Ukraine also cannot afford another offensive. I know we've been saying this on Gravitas, and now even Ukraine's Western friends are saying the same thing. The West is concerned that Ukraine's army is not prepared for a counter-offensive. And this despite the Western aid. Russia's Sputnik is reporting this, citing a British news outlet. It says, and I'm quoting, the news outlet also cited one of Pentagon's leaked defense documents as arguing that Ukraine might fail to amass sufficient troops and weaponry and fall well short of its goals for regaining territory, unquote. So you have massive casualties, which brings us back to the question. Can either of the sides afford to drag on this war? The answer may be no, and there are clear signs of war weariness, and it leaves the warring sides with only one solution, and that is peace. Interestingly enough, Pope Francis has said that the Vatican is part of the peace process to end the war in Ukraine. And what is this peace process? What are its terms and conditions? What exactly is on the table and what's not? This is what Pope Francis has to say. The mission is in the course now, but it is not yet public. And when it is public, I will reveal it. WION now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the updates on the move.